Very recently I went out and bought myself a new FujiFilm X100V. This was to replace my old trusted Panasonic Lumix GX8. A few years old now, developed a really irritating fault, not worth repairing. It's on the other side of its sort of best before date, so to speak, so time for a replacement. The Fuji X100V getting some very good write-ups and things. The one thing that for me really stood out with this particular camera is that though it's a compact camera, it does have a decent size, aps-c size sensor, which is the same size of sensor that you find in many big proper digital SLRs like the Canons and things, and they've squashed that relatively large sensor into a compact size body. Though when I say compact size, it won't really fit into a small pocket, but it'll certainly just drop into a coat pocket, no trouble. Went down to the shop, had a little look at it. It seemed really nice. Back home again, check up on a few reviews, all seemed quite positive, so went out and bought it. And I suppose, like most slightly geeky people, the first thing I did was run off to the nearest coffee shop, open up the box and see what we had inside. And the first thing that struck me straight off was that it has a proper full printed out manual, and this I really like, especially on something like this which has got quite a complex series of menus and options and things to go to. This idea of just saying, oh, go and look on the internet sort of thing, go and see our website. Yes, it has its uses, but there's no substitute to me for a proper manual. It saves me an awful lot of time, effort, energy, expense, etc. mucking around trying to find the right things to download and being stuck to looking on PDFs and things. This, and it'll last many years. As far as I'm concerned, this is a cost-effective way of doing it. I just like this idea of being able to very quickly flip from beginning to end, jump into the middle, find the stuff I want to see. That was a very definite plus. Got the camera out, popped the battery in. There was enough energy in the battery straight out the box to enable me to switch this on and power it up. Some fairly obvious menu settings to start with on first switch on, of setting up the language, date and time. A rather irritating thing where it really wanted to link into my sort of smartphone app, which I'd not yet downloaded. That was a bit of a jiggle to get past that. And with its limited battery power that was there, able to take a few pictures. And what I will say straight out, though I haven't had this camera very long, it does take some really nice pictures, and it's not too bad on the video side as well. Does do 4K video. A little bit more later on the video. It is not your ideal, though, portable video camera. Anyway, then head off home, charge up batteries and that sort of thing, get out and have a wee play with it. So what are my first impressions then? Okay, positive on the it takes some really nice pictures, etc. But perhaps the first thing that struck me was that this is a Fujifilm camera. Well, obviously, and like many Fujifilms, and I rather like this incidentally, it's kind of old school, that we do have a rotary dial on the side, on the lens for setting your aperture. There's more rotary dials on top for your shutter speed, your ISA, exposure compensation. This is kind of old school style. Some people will like it, some people won't. Personally, I'm quite happy with that. There's also a variety of various sort of knobs, dials, buttons and the thing dotted around the back, a little joystick device. That's very much for setting up menus and jumping around on the menu setup, and then when in sort of live view mode, taking pictures, moving your point of focus around. Almost all of the various buttons on the back and on the front can be reconfigured to whatever settings you pretty well want. A rotary knob on the front and the back, which can be reconfigured to do your aperture and shutter speed settings. So if you don't want or don't like this rotary knob old style, you can switch it across to an all electronic style if you want. Optical viewfinder on this, which also has the added advantage that with a wee flick of the switch on the front, and you can turn it into an electronic viewfinder. So you can either have a straight through lenses sort of rangefinder style view, or have it electronically showing what the sensor is picking up. In both ways you still have on your display all the usual sort of things you expect to see in a display of aperture and shutter speed and number of pictures left, etc, etc. Screen on the back, both for setting things up and for viewing. This is articulated, so if you want to hold the camera way up high and still be looking up, or again have it right down at real low level and still be able to see the screen, that is rather nice. It does not actually swing all the way around as my Panasonic can do, so this probably means this is not your ideal vlogging camera. However, having said that, the lens on this calls itself a 23mm lens. In fact, if you allow for the crop factor and all that sort of hoo-ha, if you compare this to a standard digital SLR, old style SLR type film camera, this is a 35mm equivalent lens, which does mean it's slightly wide angle. You can just hold it up in front of you, and as long as you're straight on to the lens, you will be pretty well in the middle of your picture. You can set this up and configure it so it has autofocus not just on the face but on eyes as well. So if you want to use this as a type selfie camera, have the autofocus thing all doing its business, I don't see why not. The touch screen is not so good. It seems a bit erratic at times, that when I touch the screen to try and move the focus point, it doesn't always move, and then sometimes it does move. And you can also set up the touch screen to swipe to call up menus, and even then sometimes when you're trying to move the focus point, instead of moving the focus point, your menus suddenly jump up, and they're not always quite the menus you were expecting, considering how you sort of moved your finger on the screen. I strongly suspect this is actually more software bugs than anything else, but is mildly irritating. The screen on the back, I'm not sure how well it'll show here. It's a pleasant enough screen. Everything's nice and crisp, and in turn, if I hit the menu button, we get all the usual menus up displayed, and using a little joystick type control, one can jump through all the different menus, do your various configuring as required. When you're going through the menus, though, it is not a touchscreen, you have to use the little joystick. I'm quite neutral on that. It's just annoying, though, that when you're trying to use it for sorting out points of focus and things and moving stuff around, you can use the little joystick, but when you're using it in touch mode, let's say, it does behave rather erratically, which is a bit annoying. Another petty little annoyance with it is the shutter button. You've obviously got the half press to sort out the focusing and the like, and a full press to actually take the picture. It's very, very sensitive. It's not too bad on the half press to get down to do the focusing, but oh my goodness, even a fraction of a more pressure and it takes a picture. Mildly annoying, but that's just a main thing on the side. Two things which are annoying to me. One is holding the camera. We do have this sort of little bumpy bit here, I suppose, as a grip. If they'd just done this flat instead of this little bump, you know, you'd be able to get your whole hand, or most of your fingers, just flat along the front. On the other hand, if they'd put a nice, relatively large sort of bumpy bit here, like on my Lumix, this nicely is the sort of the shape of your fingers, so you can really grip this firmly, nicely. The shutter button's at a slight angle, so it's easy to get on with your index finger. You can run and gun like this one-handed and use the camera and take pictures. With this one, it's just it's neither flat nor round enough to get you a good grip, which is really annoying. It does mean you kind of have to use it two-handed. The other big annoyance for me with this is if I just take off the little hot shoe adapter thing, find my wee external microphone. If you're out and about in video mode, let me clip this onto here. It is very nice that they do have on the side a microphone input. We've also got USB and HDMI, and talking about the USB, that's how you charge the battery. It does not come with its own separate battery charger, which, considering this is a premium price device, slightly annoyed me. It does mean that out of the box, you can either be using the camera or charging up a battery. It does make it a bit awkward if you want to be, say, out in the morning with your batteries at home, being recharged, your spare ones, and then back at lunchtime swapping over batteries with the used battery now into the charger, and you're out with the camera. Slightly annoying that. I think for a premium price device there should have been a proper battery charger in the box. You're just going to have to go and buy an aftermarket one. But back to this and the microphone. Very nice for doing proper video to have external microphone coming in, except you've now got this sort of flappy panel open whether you like it or not. And how on earth are you meant to be sort of, if you want to be hand holding this camera for video work, how on earth are you meant to be hand holding this camera when you've got a great big edge sticking into your hand? Now, I don't know what Fuji were thinking when they designed this, but obviously, it is really, really irritating. There is a kind of workaround for this, which I would suggest anybody and everybody do anyway, and that is into the mount in the bottom, actually put a little mini tripod type device where you can just hold it like this anyway, and this makes such a big difference. It leaves your other hand totally free for working knobs, dials, buttons and the like. Keeps it actually free now from the microphone flap bit. Another irritating thing with this flap is that the camera does say it is sort of weatherproofed, and of course once you've got the flap open with your microphone thing in, definitely not weatherproof anymore. But having a little extra bit like this, oh my goodness, even for just walking around carrying the camera and things, it makes such a difference. But it's still a bit annoying, if I just take this off, that we've got this irritating. And if I add this irritation on to, I'm going to take this off. There we go. Come off, come off, come off, come off, come off. Add this irritation onto the fact that I can't really nicely grip it, with also a rather poor battery life. I'm not very impressed with it. You're hardly out for a little bit of the day and you suddenly can see the battery indicator starting to decrement down. I would definitely suggest 1 or 2 spare batteries. I did when I got this, get a spare battery anyway, I always do. But if I compare that to my GX8, if I was just going out for a morning, I'd be more than happy just to take this without any spare batteries. No trouble there. With this, wherever I go out, I'm going to have to take a spare battery. The end. If I add that, this nasty grip bit, this bit with the microphone, and just a few other things like this overly sensitive shutter release, and the slight oddities with the screen menu selection things when you've actually got it active for touch screen for focusing and things. Despite the fact that this does take excellent pictures, I'm going to have to say I do rather regret buying it. But there we go. I am overall a bit disappointed. Oh, one other thing on the video side, certainly in 4K there is a 10-minute limit. I assume this is to do with heat, because in fact even in just general use this area here does get warm, and when you're doing video stuff it really does get quite warm quite quickly. So I assume putting a 10-minute limit on the 4K video side of things is a bit of a temperature control situation. So, oh yes, a little baby flash on the front as well, which I've never yet used. So all in all, a camera that can take some really nice pictures. Video stuff's not too bad as well, but just so many little irritating things that, like it or not, I do now actually regret buying this camera. I'll happily continue on using it, and I hope it'll give me many years of service. Much of its service time will be spent with a grip device of some sort here, and obviously if you've got the tripod ones, you've got a nice little tripod set up as well. But well, there we go. Nice pictures, nice video, but kind of shame about everything else. Never mind. Okay, enough. Goodbye.